Voices of X was a journal started in 2011 by some users of /x/. According to many reports, those participating in the journal began to experience extreme synchronicities in their lives, coincidences too strange to be mere coincidences, and so on, until the project was terminated around 2012 because most of the members had either quit or gone insane. Because no archived threads from this period still exist, we have to rely on secondhand reports, and one of the most popular was posted on Reddit in October 2013. It states, "This is a true story. I'm new here, usually a 4chaner. Just came to share the story because I thought you would like it. Sometime last year, a group of Anons on the 4chan paranormal board /x/ randomly decided to start a journal recording their experiences of synchronicity. Synchronicity is a phenomenon coined by Carl Jung and is defined as the meaningful occurrence of unrelated events with no causal relation. They had no idea what they would find, not being religious or spiritual in any sense. This, however, seemed to be the only phenomenon which they could say they had a genuine curiosity in, and wanted to try and get to the bottom of what it could possibly mean, if anything. The journal was called Voices of X, or Vox for short, and encouraged people to record any events which they thought were out of the usual or even would make them seem crazy. Here are some early threads. I don't have many of them archived, unfortunately, and these images are now unfortunately lost. What happened is that the more that Anons recorded these seemingly random events in their life, the more they started to notice dark patterns within the events and join the dots more and more. Instead of reaching some great summit of enlightenment as they were hoping, they found instead that the imbued meaning seemed to point at some altogether dark or demonic force at work. For instance, repeated incidents involving the words hell or rape. Racking their brains to cope with the stress of the potential implications of these findings, the journal itself started to become more of a group therapy session than anything else, and severely took its toll on the members who participated. Some felt that they were turning schizophrenic, or that they perhaps had become possessed by demons or dark alien forces of some variety. The original creator of the journal got so worn down by it all that they had to take their leave of 4chan and spend some time in a psych ward. One by one, the people who took up the reins of the journal also found that the stress became too much for them, and they felt as though they were pursuing a dark and troublesome route they could no longer continue to walk. The journal slowly became yet another urban legend and was discontinued permanently. At various attempts to revive the journal, non-participants noticed other eerie things about the journals themselves. In fact, many of the threads seemed to contain certain individual focus points. That is, in a particular thread there was a running theme of synchronicities all shared by the contributors. For instance, repeated instances of the words snake. Some Anons have claimed that each of these individual events can be translated to a letter of the alphabet, and that, across all the separate threads, a message is spelled out. Not everyone agrees with this, however, and many argue that this is more evidence that synchronicity and all kind of magical thinking, such as this, display only the ability humans have to see patterns where there are none. Nevertheless, those that claim that the message exists agree that it was spelt something like, "The ghost in the machine points to the false prophet." There are also many interpretations as to what the message itself could mean. Some say that somebody deliberately hijacked the journal with these particular entries for the sake of viral marketing for some online magazine called The False Prophet, which ties into an alternate reality game that was played last year that involves this countdown website. Others claim that the message pertains to the coming of the Antichrist or merely from the devil himself. Some tie it to the conspiracy theory relating to an Illuminati agent who revealed himself at the end of the Mayan calendar. Most people believe that the journal indicates nothing, and sadly ended their last lingering thread of belief in anything at all. Was their journal hijacked by supernatural forces? Was this really a case of the cursed journal of 4chan? Or was it just the overactive imagination of Anons? Is synchronicity a genuine spiritual phenomenon? And if so, does it imply some evil overarching whisper in the darkness? Perhaps these things are never to be known by humans. But if you want to know, maybe you could start keeping a journal yourself, get your friends involved, and post it up on the internet. But remember, you have been warned. There might just be a ghost in the machine. Another Reddit post on the same subreddit was made afterwards, but it is mostly rehashed content from the first one. It states that the project was revived by some X users in 2014 and links to a few threads. The poster also says, "There has been no conclusion to the new VOX diaries. However, already the awakening of ghosts has become apparent. New recruits to the project reported immediate waves of synchronicities upon responding to the threads. But this time the occurrences are marred with much more physical symptoms. After being bombarded with synchronicities, one Anon claims to have had the feeling of tiny hands scratching at the back of her eyes. Then there was a person who had a vivid hallucination of a screaming skull with one red eye, and another who suffered sleep paralysis as she was eaten by a gigantic spider made of memories and dreams. Is it all just mental hysteria caused by looking into connections too deeply? Have you ever had a synchronicity? How far down the path of madness would you be willing to walk? Would you listen to the ghost that whispers to you across space and time? The threads which were linked to the second post seem to offer an explanation as to what the Voices of X project really was about. Here, there are also links to what seems to be the first thread about the project, posted all the way back in 2012. Links to all of them, as well as all sources for this video, are in the description for those interested in further researching the topic. 2 of these threads are mostly shitposting and do not offer much interesting information, but the third one is quite spooky. It is made by a person called Jamie, who apparently used to run the Voices of X threads, and says that this is the last thread they will be making. He states that he believes synchronicity is simply the beginning of psychosis, and that if there is some sort of spirit which creates these coincidences, it must be quite malevolent. Now, from these threads, we can begin to understand how the VOX project worked. It seems that sometime after the beginning of the project of simply looking for synchronicities, the users began writing a specific sigil of a being called Ghost. The sigil is on screen. It also seems that at some point this project merged with another project called Cube of Saturn, which was also on X. In these threads, users would post collections of images and words and try to find synchronicities or patterns in the collective unconscious. And indeed, many users reported quite interesting coincidences, and we highly recommend the interested viewer to search for these threads on the 4Plebs archive, as there are some quite uncanny coincidences. Unfortunately, it seems that both of these projects ended up dying out eventually, and nowadays the only thing left on X is schizo posting and old green text, a shadow of its former self. Notwithstanding, the actual phenomenon of synchronicity deserves a video of its own right, but we will explain a little bit more about it here. First, we must explain a bit about Jungian psychology. In his system, Carl Jung defined 3 layers of consciousness, or existence. First is the ego, which represents the conscious mind as it comprises the thoughts, memories, and emotions that a person is aware of. Largely responsible for feelings of identity and continuity, the ego is also locked in a sort of permanent conflict with the unconscious mind, fighting for control of the self. One can make an analogy of a flashlight in a pitch black room. From the flashlight's point of view, the room is entirely illuminated, as it can never see reality from any point of view other than its own. In truth, however, what is illuminated at any given moment is only a fraction of the total contents of the mind, and it is in these unknown areas that the unconscious lies. Jung divided the unconscious mind into 2 layers, the personal and collective unconscious. The personal unconscious contains forgotten information, repressed memories, or anything the person is not consciously aware of at that moment. The collective unconscious, however, is much more powerful and deeper, and is shared by all human beings. There are many theories as to how we came to share the collective unconscious. Perhaps it is in the human DNA, or transmitted through some other means. Regardless of that, the existence of some sort of shared unconscious structure, which serves as the foundation for all subsequent thought, is practically proven by the existence of archetypes. Jung, after extensively analyzing many different ancient and modern cultural symbols, myths, gods, demons, and heroes, discovered that they all fit into a sort of template, and in this manner, practically all cultures, even those who had never met, shared common myths and legends. Jung called these templates archetypes, and they still exist within the modern man, although in a radically different manner. Most people will never be aware of the fact that all their conscious thoughts and mannerisms are actually based upon very ancient universal symbols. Some of the most popular archetypes are the Great Mother, the Wise Old Man, the Shadow, the Tree of Life, and indeed, many others. One of the most important parts of esotericism, or the occult sciences, is uncovering these archetypes within one's own psyche, as our most experienced viewers will know. In the battle for control of the mind, the unconscious sends out information through symbols, as it by definition cannot communicate directly with the conscious mind. These symbols can appear in dreams or in real life, as repeated phrases or images which appear too strange to be mere coincidences. These strange coincidences, which seem to be conveying a message, were then called synchronicities by Jung. For more Jungian psychology, we highly recommend the channel Nexus Void. It is quite small, but it produces incredible videos about psychology and the archetypes, and we cannot recommend it enough. But now, we will conclude the video with some common sense and skepticism towards synchronicities. Anyone who thinks thoroughly about the subject will come to realize that strange coincidences are very often just that, coincidences, and are bound to happen because of the almost infinite number of sensory information and images which we perceive on any given day. Our unconscious brain filters this immense amount of data from our awareness and only highlights that which interests us, which leads to the illusion of a coincidence. but in reality, we do not perceive the vast amounts of irrelevant information which is discarded by our minds. Thus, synchronicity should always be taken with a slight grain of salt. Although, there are definitely ways in which the universe and the unconscious mind communicate with us, such as in dreams and visions, which deserve much more attention than random coincidences, even if they seem uncanny. The human mind is known to create seemingly relevant information out of random input. This is called apophenia. And although it is perfectly normal, an excess or conscious effort to try to find these coincidences can lead to psychosis and the onset of schizophrenia. Anyways, we hope you've enjoyed this video and learned something new. Whether there is a ghost in the machine or the voices of X-Stars were simply random coincidences, we may never know. It is, though, undoubtedly spooky. And with this thought, we end the video. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you soon once again.